Very good evening and a grand welcome to this particular channel. This particular channel is presented to you by the BMC Campus Historical Preservation Society. This basically seems to be an cultural repository, pals, of the Historical Preservation Society, which basically is formed, because, pals, there happens to be a great deal of need to, in fact, honor some particular students, at the School of Engineering, for their particular remarkable contributions, which they made, towards the particular campus culture. But the way in which, pals, those particular students, carried on with their particular legacy during their particular studenthood, happens to be much more than a miracle. Those particular students, pals, happen to be from the classes and batches, especially, in precedence to 2017, all these particular reformations, pals, began since about 2014, in a way that the so-called Chilasian Renaissance cultural movement, pals, was basically founded, or rather, put forth in the year of 2016, which was basically descended from a real life student, pals, who used to be at this particular School of Engineering, pals, whose identity is well kept secret. But, pals, it was that student, pals, who uh, through her so-called behavioral aesthetics, her comportment, her disposition, her so-called universalistic integrity, which she basically described, throughout all those years, basically came to be recognized as the Chilasian princess, who in fact, put forth or laid the establishment, or made the formation for a basis, which became the foundation for the Chilasian era Renaissance or Chilasian Renaissance cultural movement. That particular student, pals, hailed from the agglomeration of Patliputra in the capital city, or the capital of the state of Bihar. That was a student, pals, who used to be, back in the olden days, found all over the campus, pals, especially, pals, she had a kind of a virtue in her mind, or rather, she had a virtue, which was about being an animal rights activist, or simply advocacy, for the rights of animals, she always, pals, nurtured and caressed, all the pets, pals, the BMC all used to have had. That was one particular moment, pals, in which she used to basically provide food, or rather, snacks, and basically love, to all the particular pets, which the BMC used to have, such as, all the dogs, all the cats, and all, you could say even some certain birds, which used to be, at the telecommunications garden. Well, that particular student, was seen by many individuals, whilst, always sort of, demonstrating her so-called not exactly a Europhilic, but the dog equivalent of the word, a Europhilic affection, towards dogs. She was basically like James Thurber. She always, pals, nurtured all those particular dogs, and which in itself, pals, made, the School of Engineering, pals, to in fact, promote those particular pets, which were later on, domesticated, by the school. But it was she, because of whom, this particular revolution took place here. So we highly wish to honor her, the Chilasian princess, and with which we wish to conclude this segment of now. And see you later after some time.